Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to 2020 Spring LCK. I'm Atlas, and I'm joined by Chobra here for our first series of the day, which is shaping up to be a relatively quick one, to be perfectly honest, especially if we continue to get all of these Maokais that seem to be picked up. It's not necessarily working out so far.
Honestly, okay, so not that I'm a top-level player, right? I'm not, in any means,
Yeah.
but like, I've tried Maokai as well several times in the past couple months, both in 10.5 and 10.6, because I like that champion, and in theory it seems like it should work, but just every time my experience is that just not tanky enough, and so I just don't think it fits in the current meta.
Yeah, it's like how your job is to be a tank, but there are just much better options, and the opposition tank is going to pick up player of the game. I think it was obvious this time around.
Yes.
A very easy pog to deliver this time is kind of with the solo kills. I mean, Cuvée tried to twisted advance and escape this, but there was just no way. And watch, he's immortal. He just straight up is immortal, and that's what a tank is supposed to do. It's exactly what you were talking about, Chobra.
Yeah, I kind of, I think, built up the right, I guess, power level that he needed in that lane, of course, with that solo kill. I mean, this was just really unfortunate. I think you're right that it was both maybe the Ocean Drake and the Grass Within Dying. I think both of those kept kind of alive because we saw like 2 spurts of health.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, look at that. So we're seeing, obviously, all the votes, and I think everyone agreed that it was kind of...
Yep, the classic 9 out of 9. Even Jonah Strong keeping up, because like he does like some really weird votes, but this time around everyone is in agreement, and you could certainly understand exactly why. We are going to have a substitution. Zenit is making his way in. No Lava just yet, as Vista is out, and Zenit's going to be joining the team here. Of course, Zenit, if you weren't aware, Chobra, of course, a very new player. He debuted on KT last year. KT almost got relegated, and now he's been picked up by Hanwha Life. He hasn't had too many good performances so far, but we'll see what he can do here in game number 2 against T1. Certainly a tall order for these guys.
Yeah, I mean, both for, the team that they're playing against, and of course, as AD carries, your opponent being Teddy, I mean, how much can you really gauge there? I guess as long as you can stay alive and help your team win, then you're doing okay in that matchup. But we'll have to see. I think it's really going to come down to the draft. I mean, as far as I can tell, like you said, most of these players are relatively new, compared to where, the knowledge I have of the league. But obviously, the bottom lane, the AD carries of Hanwha, none of them seem to really stand out. So I think the substitution might just be to make sure everyone's staying warmed up and they can continue to test different things. But if they really want to win, the focus is going to have to be somewhere else.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's Hanwha going to start off with the LeBlanc band. They take away the Callista as well from both Canna and Teddy. Very flexible is the Callista these days. Yuumi taken away from Lehens, very standard. He was the best Yuumi player. I almost said the best Lehens player, but that's what Yuumi sort of feels like here in the LCK, because everyone worldwide, when she was released, looked at Lehens for what to do on this champion. And it didn't take until he moved over to Hanwha Life. It took that for him to actually ever lose a game on this champion. He was just unbeatable. So that's still going to be banned away here. The Jarvan taken off the board here from Hanwha's side also. And T1 wondering what to ban. I mean, if Felios is available, Senna is available, Ornn is available, there are so many things up. And the Elise is what they choose to ban, leaving everything on the table, as Aphelios is the decision. But T1 have, they can just lock Ornn Senna right here, and there is absolutely nothing that Hanwha can do to stop it.
I mean, I agree, right? If I was in Hanwha's shoes, I mean, do you give the Ornn over again, or do you give the Aphelios over to Teddy? Probably the Ornn at that point, but it just feels like a really bad choice. I'm a little curious about the Jarvan ban. And, there's the Cassiopeia again. Obviously, we saw Teddy going nuts on that champion.
And I believe it was into the Aphelios as well, so that's the decision that they do like to make. The Trundle being considered as a takeaway from Elim, as we spoke about before. The Trundle was banned in game number 1 by Hanwha Life, and now Haru is going to take that one away. And where Tempt is going to go is the next question. I have a feeling something like the Azir could be a decent option. as T1 still have so much flexibility this time around, but it will be the Pigeon Man in the mid lane, Tempt, a very good Azir player for a very long time. Even when he was on BBQ, he was performing well on this champion. But I don't know whether having that priority in the mid lane is going to be enough here, especially when Faker can pick whatever he would like into this Azir if he'd like to. And with the other thing as well is that now that they have the Cassiopeia now augmented by the Kindred that LM is going to be picking up in isolation against the Trundle, a fantastic pickup.
Yeah.
But now their composition has all of this flexibility. They can pick the AD assassin in the mid lane if they'd like to go up against this Azir that can do very well. I mean, things like Aurelia have always been the bane of his existence with their gap close ability, things like that. So I'm a little bit worried for Hanwha Life already, but they do have the Aphelios, who's very, very strong, and they do have the Azir, which is big comfort for Tempt. So maybe a better start than the last draft.
Yeah, I mean, you have to imagine that they were going to prioritize either Senna or Aphelios, just given how the bans went. So it looks like they came in prepared for that. Like you said, I think the Azir is a good pickup. Also, just not even just considering the players, but on top of everything, there's just so much zone control in team fights already with simply Ornn and Cassiopeia, and then now obviously with Kindred on the side of T1. So taking out another wild card in terms of kind of dictating where you're going to fight seems like a good idea. We are going to see that Thresh band and then the Nautilus being
insta-lock. Absolutely. They took no time at all to make sure that effort was on that champion. Still can be flexed, of course. You can put that in Faker's hands if you would like to, have those double tanks. And then because they have extra damage coming out of the jungle here with LM on the Kindred, they have so much flexibility with where all of these champions can go. So I really, really like this pickup. Last time around, we actually saw Morgana banned when you had the Cassiopeia bottom side. Of course, Black Shield can be eaten through very, very quickly. But when you've got all of this CC that you want to be throwing out, the Black Shield, even if it does only have a couple of ticks, it is still going to be very valuable. As now we're looking to see what our final pick's going to be. It will be the Sylas, most likely heading top lane.
And obviously a great just buffet of ults you can steal already. With
yeah, that's true. The hijack going to be very important, but is it going top lane? Because this could be Trundle top into the Ornn. Who knows? There's some crazy stuff going on.
Yeah, actually, I'm not so sure about Cuvée taking that Sylas into.
That's what I'm thinking as well. It doesn't feel like a Cuvée type champion. Trundle, however, does feel like one, but we'll see. There's a few different options. We saw Canyon on the jungle Sylas do fantastic things yesterday. As the final pickup for T1 will be the Pantheon heading into the mid lane. We mentioned that you can go for more of these sort of AD style, I was saying assassins, but I mean Pantheon doesn't really feel like that, but certainly will be able to clear out waves and affect side lanes very, very well. And once again, T1, it's an eclectic draft, but it is still very well rounded, and they can play out their front to back style with the double CC tools of the Nautilus and the Ornn very, very well. I love what they've put together here, but Hanwha Life, a better draft than they had last time around, even if there is still a bit of a question mark with the Sylas top lane piloted by Cuvée.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think if we weren't looking at the players, that would be the pick you want. It's still going to be a little tough for Sylas, just because Ornn's going to be able to withstand your damage. Like, Ornn's going to scale as you scale into your damage with his defense. So we're not going to see too much action up top, I don't think, unless we see a lot of attention paid top lane by Haru. Now, the Trundle should help against the likes of Ornn as well, post level 6. In those team fights, should be able to kind of just beat down that Ornn. So Aphelios just needs to maybe rip through that front line first, as Aphelios usually has to, given that he doesn't have much movement available. The options are there, but it's really going to come down to, I think, actually, is Lehen's going to be able to zone out Teddy's Cassiopeia enough so that they're not just getting shoved in and losing all control in that bottom lane.
Well, we'll have to find out how it's going to go as we get onto the Rift for game number 2. T1 with a 1-game lead. A 24-minute smashing of Hanwha was exactly how it happened, and it might just happen again. I think the draft was really cool by T1. They seem to really enjoy this Cassiopeia into the Aphelios, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes. But this time, the bottom lane for Hanwha feels a little bit better into it with the Morgana that has been picked up. It will give Zenit a little bit more to work with. And Lehen's going pretty aggressive with his rune choice as well, with the Comet being picked up for the extra damage availability there towards the bottom side, as Canna's just happily spamming some emotes as we've switched Faker and Canna. I don't know whether we needed to, but we're still going to do so.
Oh, there we go.
I don't know what Jonah was thinking there, but we'll probably have the switch back.
Other than that, nothing too crazy. Obviously, we got the book on Canna for those runes, but outside of that, Halo Blade's coming in for Azir. I know you guys have talked about that a couple times, becoming more and more popular with what Azir is able to do with attack speed. And okay, so it does look like we are
somehow they told the future.
Yeah.
I mean, there was some movements towards top lane from Faker earlier on, but it seemed like they had moved back. But it looks to be Ornn versus Azir here at the very beginning. And Faker up against Cuve's Sylas will be a really rough time for the Sylas, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, Sylas should not be able to really do anything. It looks like they're for Haru looking to make some moves early on with a level 2 gank here. Faker not really aware. Thinks Cuve's just playing a little scared.
Yeah, we'll see whether he has anything leveled up. Only level 1, so has to flash very early in this one. Not going to be able to find the kills. Underneath the turret will trade 1 for 1, but he kills his buffs, and Faker has teleport. I don't know whether that was worth it.
I don't know, Atlas. I mean, okay, so I'm sorry. That's just so disappointing because Faker can still kill Cuve, like just because he's Pantheon, and it looks like he might be able to. He was trying to draw that flash out, so maybe they could get another gank here coming in from Elim this time around. Looks like Elim will still come by. The ward's still up, so Cuve, if he's paying attention, should not die by any means. But now this opens up Haru to so much susceptibility. Elim with double buffs. Haru does not have any. The mark on Haru as well.
It is going to be secured by Haru, so Elim with a level advantage though. Cuve moving on down. Tempt is going to be here as well. 3 members. Elim forced to flash Faker a little bit late on the rotation. And Hanwha Life are going to be able to take down the young jungler. Just an overly aggressive move, but a great collapse out from Hanwha.
That was just really good communication from Hanwha. I mean, you saw that Haru was already positioning for that, drawing that buff out around that corner right before the smite, and that's when we saw the rest of Hanwha moving towards that jungle. So it ends up paying off a little bit just because Elim also got a little too greedy. But in the beginning here, really what comes down is Cuve misses his E, right? The second target is he doesn't get the knock-up, and they draw the flash out. I think at this point, Haru could have just been happy looking for a second gank, or maybe, standing by in case Elim shows up, goes in, and dies, and now we see Elim actually just saying, alright, well, I'll be overly aggressive as well. I'll lose my buff so we're on even ground.
Yeah, it's almost like a gentleman's agreement or something like that. But going for that play is actually just never a good idea because Tempt had the shove in the mid lane and was always going to be able to rotate first. And so T1 were priced into having a man disadvantage in that moment. This is what we were talking about in game number 1, actually in favor of T1. They were playing around, pushing lanes really, really well, but that was an example of it just not working out, and LM probably just shouldn't have made that decision as he moved into the enemy jungle. And they knew exactly what they were going into, right? Like, he was ready to go and fight Haru because they had vision down, and they knew that was a possibility. As Cuve now with the double buffs up against Faker, this is going to be a little bit more of a rough task for Faker to win out this lane, but the lane is pushing in his favor, and so should be relatively safe as Faker. Possibly in trouble, but no, has his E now, and he's going to be able to keep himself safe.
Yeah, the double buff is really what's allowing Cuve to dictate the lane a little bit here, but it's not going to last forever. Now, Faker is behind. Obviously, we just saw that this was his 65th champion for Faker in the LCK, so that's always been the case for Faker, right? I think one of the reasons he's always touted as the best in the world, even if he's not always, in that top spot in the rankings, through over the years, it's just that he's able to stay at that level across so many champions, as we see Faker actually getting really aggressive.
Yeah, Cuve ran out of double buffs, and now Faker feels like he has renewed vigor here towards the top side. Haru going to be starting off this Ocean Drake, though, and it doesn't look like T1 do want to contest, as you've got Ellen moving on down, but she's struggling with Bertha at the moment. That is the name of that particular Grom.
Okay.
We've got a wiki page that I might link you to after this match with all the different LCK terminology that we do have. There's a lot of really weird stuff, but
yeah, I catch on to some now and then.
Okay, good. As Infernal Drake will be the next one, but we have a Cloud Soul or a Mountain Soul available for both of these teams, and T1 really hoping that they can get their hands on that Mountain Soul. If that is what's available to them, my god, it is such high value.
Yeah, if the Mountain Soul comes out, I mean, it becomes high value for both teams just because Hanwha cannot afford to let T1 get that Mountain Soul with the composition they have. But we'll have to wait until the next Drake, of course, to figure out what it's going to be. Cuvée, again, got that lucky break and is able to still keep up a little bit. But the thing is the power of Pantheon is just so unpredictable. And also, despite Silas being able to lifesteal out on his W, Pantheon could just burst you down before that with his passive as well. So you really have to watch out with how you're trading. And we do see both junglers near the top side as well.
Yeah, you got LM trying to get himself some marks here. And this is the problem. We talk about Kindred as this feast or famine jungler, right? You are so predictable with where you're going to be moving. And the way that you counteract that is by being so strong that your opponent doesn't have any opportunity to challenge you for these marks on the map. You can see currently it is sitting on the Raptor camp of Hanwha Life, but now with the power level of Haru and with the fact that they have a pushing mid lane, not necessarily right now, but have had throughout this game, it's very difficult to be able to work into the enemy jungle and take away these marks. So you can see already with so much vision available, and Haru very comfortably able to move on over and deny that mark from LM. So he's going to have to start picking up some of these kills to try and lock these marks down. You can see why he was so desperate to go after Haru in his jungle earlier on, because if he's able to get that kill, then that's a free mark on top of everything else. So a little bit of a worry for T1's jungler, but we'll see what LM can do as we move towards a mid game on this Kindred.
Yep, things aren't too bad, right? Things aren't too bad. Really on either side, I think Hanwha obviously happy with how things turned around in that jungle since then, and they've been able to make sure that Silas is getting ahead a little bit, as we do see Faker just getting a little vision in the enemy jungle. But the problem is at the same time, as long as they're not dying, I mean, I think Ornn and Cassiopeia for T1 are fairly happy as well, and Faker actually going in for a sneaky steal. If he gets this blue, Silas cannot really contend any trades in that top lane.
And it also denies Tempt. He's not going to have his blue buff. So as long as Haru doesn't steal this one away, he is moving up very, very quickly and will have the smite. But Faker secures it. Now has to try and get out. Has flash available as LM might be jumping into this pit to try and help out. But no, not going to, as Faker holds onto the flash for a really long time. As Shelly, in fact, gets angry at Cuvée. But Canna's got the rotation over and Effort is here in position. And it all looks like it was planned by T1 as they now pick up control. There's the flash forward with the dredge line as Cuvée is in trouble. He picked up the Ornn, but you're not going to be able to use that from beyond the grave.
Wow, that was some crazy baiting coming in from T1. And as soon as Faker looked like he wasn't going to flash, I wondered if that was the case. We started to see that movement of the entire team of T1 coming over, and then Faker just kind of continues to really taunt them by trying to recall in that pit. And we see Cuvée getting caught out, wondering, oh, are they going to contest for Shirley here? Are they going for the Herald or not? Should we stick around? But surprise, it suddenly turns into a 5v2, 5v3, and T1 pick up an easy kill and the Herald.
Yep, and we'd be talking about support difference here at this stage as well, because the inside track from Effort's initial rotation was absolutely fantastic. Made it look like T1 had everything just completely planned, as he saw Canna just light Tempt on fire in the attempt to just cycle his summoner spells. Just adorable. I love that.
I love it. We're seeing that replay again. I mean, I think the most important part here was the baiting in. When Cuvée gets caught out, he thinks, all right, well, I stole Ornn's ult. We might be able to turn things around, but suddenly it's 4, and then actually they don't see Teddy until much later. Teddy shows up as well, and so Haru kind of reads the situation maybe just half a second earlier than his teammate backs away, and Cuvé's left out to dry.
Yeah, just no options there whatsoever. And it just shows that, you know, Canna is on. You know, he's trained his GOAT just a little bit better than what Cuvée has. He only picks up his GOAT every now and again, so it's just not as comfortable for the Silas's little pet there, as Dredgeline going to go wide. Hen's not too worried about it, but Effort's still moving forward. In comes Faker. They find Zenit, but great Black Shield is going to deny any of the CC, and his Calibrum able to offer some damage back as we're trolling our observers a lot, needing to switch around Faker and Canna all over the place. But I think it may have settled towards a mid lane Pantheon situation, especially now with Man Drop available. And getting Faker around the map is going to be very important. Didn't quite manage to find it in that first instance, but the ultimate will be back off cooldown relatively shortly.
Yeah, I was wondering if T1 was going to start the Drake given the movement they had. I think because they weren't able to get the kill, they're backing off, but we see the teleport coming in as well from Kana.
Yep, it's not going to be the steal as Alan tried to dance of arrows himself over there, but there's the Ornhorn going to be blocked by a fantastic Pillar's attempt. He's going to fall down as well. A lot of damage available from Zenit though, as Faker down relatively low. Haru is going to be able to escape, and there's the exhaust to stop Teddy's onslaught onto the rest of Hanwha Live. It is a Mountain Soul, and now T1, after losing the Infernal, they can stack 4 of these bad boys this game if they are able to get control, and that's how this game feels like it's heading.
Yeah, I mean, the 2 Drakes start to really look like they're not going to matter as much anymore. Hanwha needs to make sure that Drake is their #1 priority from here on out, because if T1 comfortably start to stack those up, it's going to be very, very dangerous. I mean, they're going to be just unstoppable, and Teddy's going to have a very easy time sitting in the back line.
I think Ellen just got full plates from that Shelly charge as well, so really nicely done. T1 making sure that Ellen is going to be back up in power level and has now actually exceeded Haru's gold count, which is great news because Haru's been booking it around this jungle, just destroying camps left, right, and center. Very, very close to being about 4.5 camps ahead of Ellen on this Kindred. As you got T1 looking to try and set up this trap for Tempt. He's going to move too far forward. Shifting Sands gets him out of there, and Effort looking for the dredge line but does not find it. Just a little bit of time wasted there perhaps by T1, but they're not going to be punished too much.
Yeah, not too badly. I wasn't sure. I looked a little late. Effort not having his ult. It would have been nice to see Teddy actually go in first to make sure that the Shifting Sands isn't able to come out as early. But alas, I mean, again, not too big of a loss. They're just going to be able to go back. The lane has reset relatively in that bottom lane. And now, I mean, Kana and Faker are continuing to swap just on a need basis, right? If Pantheon's ult is up, I think that's when they're going to see Faker start to roam around a little bit more and kind of might cover for that top lane. I think they're leaving QV alone a little too much. I don't think they care as much for now, which is fine. But obviously, if Decisive is able to really climb back up in power level, they might have extra things to worry about.
Yeah, that's true, and he will be able to answer a lot of what Ornn can do by having the return goat. We didn't see it last time utilized very effectively, but as this game goes on, that is certainly going to be an opportunity that they do have. Zenit now, with his Essence Reaver completed, this Aphelios is scaling pretty well. I mean, he's behind by a little bit of farm, but you don't really mind too much about that because T1, they had the counterpick available, and if this is the result of a counterpick lane, then you're not feeling too bad about it whatsoever, as Teddy down here is still going to be able to fend them off 1 versus 2. Now going to be moving back, and we'll see where T1 are going to attack next. 2 minutes until that Mountain Drake, and you have a feeling that that is going to be the next port of call for both of these teams as far as getting out their fisticuffs is concerned.
Yeah, looking at that bottom lane, which I think really, again, the carry potential relies on that side for both teams. It's a question of who's going to be able to rip through that front line a little bit better. I think to some extent, just because of the range, obviously, that Aphelios has, if Zenit positions himself well, should be able to dish out a lot more damage in these team fights, but T1 can actually just move forward as a group, right? Kind of ignoring, because there's not much of a front line on the side of Hanwha, so that's going to be the difference in how that plays.
Yep, Haru in trouble. The mark has been set up. Good knock up there, but not going to be answered as Faker makes his way in, but slightly off kilter here from T1 as Faker deep into the back line. Does have a lot of that damage mitigation, will be doing a lot here as Zenit goes down low, but no, not going to be able to get that one done as Lehens is going to fall in response. But trading Faker for Lehens is something Hanwha are well and truly happy with.
Yeah, they are happy with the result, but it took so much because of the damage block coming out from Pantheon and the perfect angle as well. Faker positioned himself so he was taking no damage for a good 2 seconds, and I think Cuvée made the right call of bringing in the Ornalt and then knocking up all the other members of T1 in that Dragon Pit. However, because of that, Faker was able to continue to move about and maneuver around, so he's not taking that much damage. As we see it come out here, again, they tried to have a good start. Faker comes in perhaps a little bit too late or maybe a little too early. And now look at this. Faker's just blocking out everything. They don't have any further CC, can't lock him down. His back's to the wall, which is where he wants to be in that situation, and is able to fend off 4 people.
Yeah, it shows just how valuable the Black Shield is from Lehens as well. So Zenit not able to get stunned by any of the abilities of Faker, and Zenit able to get the damage back in order to mitigate that one. Great petrifying gaze here from Teddy, though, as Lehens is in trouble. Has himself the Black Shield, but he's been lit on fire. As now Haru deep into the backline, actually very tanky with that subjugation up. But now Kana moves himself over to the rest of his teammates. But look at this Azir damage, really tearing through T1 right now, and Effort has no way to get back into this fight. There's the divide onto 2 members, but LM gets back onto his Glamorous fight, and the Azir is punished for his aggression. T1 turning it all around on its head on the back of a beautiful ultimate out of this Kindred, but Aphelios is still a champion, able to pick up the first kill there as Kana in trouble. This guy loves living on about 100 health, but no, not going to survive this time around, and Hanwha do have more in the tank.
T1 played that so well, and then, like you said, they kind of forgot that Zenit was around, I think, because Zenit was still at full health, just sitting on the back line. Now, the Strand's not going down as quickly as Hanwha would really like. They also don't have their smite.
Teddy, this is aggressive. Not actually able to get that one done, and Cuvée had the Kingslayer available. Faker thinking about going in as well, but they didn't coordinate their attack. There is no smite here available on this Drake, down to 5 health. And now Faker is definitely going to go down as Cuvée picks it up with a W. This is some, this is some T1 play that we haven't been privy to in their previous matches. Normally it is so coordinated and controlled, but this was haphazard at best.
Yeah, I mean, like you said during that play, obviously Teddy starts that fight out very well with a good ultimate hiding in that brush. But now you see that while we said there wasn't as much of a front line, Hanwha was able to try to push through with Haru up front. But watch here, T1 looks like they should just all die as Aphelios starts to chase through, and we see the ultimate coming up for the Azir, and there's the Kindred ultimate, keeping all of them alive, kind of not able to turn things around entirely with his ultimate, isn't able to get back in position, but they still pick up the kill. This is where they should have backed out. I think they just completely blanked for a second on what this Aphelios could potentially do, and with the Black Shield still available, Zenit's just not afraid of anything as that Black Shield comes off cooldown. And once again, Teddy tries to come in, just doesn't understand that he's not going to stand up to the power without any other crowd control available. And Faker as well, I think Faker realizes in the last moment that, okay, with the Black Shield there, maybe I should have jumped in. But it was a little late and gets caught out by that Silas again as well.
Yeah, really disappointing stuff. But T1 still, it's not even 1,000 gold lead for Hanwha Life, but they are threatening Soul Point here with the Mountain Drake coming up in 3.5 minutes. And T1 will have to make that dance happen yet again. I want to have a look at LM to see just how many stacks he's managed to pick up on this Kindred, because I don't think that number is very high at all. He hasn't been able to get into the enemy jungle ever since that early game, and the kills haven't been racking up. You can see he's only got 1 to his name. 5 kill participation as far as what the team play has been like, so he has been there for these fights, but I just don't know whether the priority targets have been going down. So having a look at the total gold, some big numbers for the Kindred, regardless of how LM's been playing. But you can see there are leads over on Hanwha Life's side, and Cuvée has been playing very well this game after a very disappointing game 1.
Yeah, I mean, Cuvée, we kind of joked about how the Silas maybe isn't a type of champion we expect to see played well by Cuvée, but has been proving us wrong. Very aggressive and just very on point with not only when he's stealing the ults, but how he's using them both in lane and in team fights. And I think Cuvée plus Haru just may be enough for the Zenit to sit back, of course, with Lehens by his side as well.
Yeah, the peel from Lehens has been absolutely fantastic this game also, so really stepping up their performances in both top and support, and they were two of our question marks in game number 1. I mean, Lehens is a great Thresh player, but most of his plays were just met with a T1 that was way too strong at that point in the game, and he wasn't really able to play the Lehens style League of Legends that he is known for. Control ward over the wall here as LM does still have control of his own jungle, but he needs to be able to get into the enemy jungle and start picking up some of these marks as this game goes on. Zhonya's Hourglass complete for Cuvée after his Proto Belt that he initially purchased, but he's the guy with the bounty on his head for Hanwha Life here, and that is great news if you put it in comparison to what we saw in game number 1. So really highlighting the differences between this particular Hanwha Life as they've put on their blue shorts and look to be a much better opponent here for T1.
Yeah, I mean, they can't celebrate too early just yet. They are obviously very well positioned with their Drakes. They had the first 3, and they just need that next one if they want to secure that Mountain Soul and really just shut it out of possibility from T1, which is great news. And I would say, given just where things are overall for T1 right now as well, the question is, yes, I mean, T1 can afford to go entirely late as well with obviously Horn and then the powers they'll have with Cassiopeia and that Kindred. But I think, I mean, going that late with an Aphelios who seems to just be covered very well right now, given the play from Hanwha, doesn't seem like it's the answer. But what else can they do? I mean, Pantheon's kind of out of the question now. Faker really just has to play a little bit more utility and, I guess, attention grabbing and playing a little bit more bait around the team fights rather than going in for these pure assassinations.
Yeah, I don't think he's in a position to really jump onto Senate, especially with Lehens in his back pocket every single time. Sun Turret goes up here in the mid lane, and the map is feeling smaller and smaller for T1 as 20 seconds on that Mountain Drake and that Mountain Soul availability for Hanwha Life. T1 do need to get into position, and they're skirting around. They will be able to make their way into the river, but this is a fight that could be dangerous for T1. Hanwha Life now going to move over. Cuvée is here. He had teleport available, but he won't need to use it as he's grouped up with his team. The River Ram is starting, and this will be another 50-50. Ellen needs to be able to pick up this Drake, and Canna, have a look for that ultimate, have a look for that Ornhorn to see whether it can turn the tides of this team fight. Cuvé's going to have one as well, as there's all of the Rams running forward. Tempt is going to get knocked up, and the Sun Turret is going to fall down. Moonlight Vigil is massive though, but the Drake is taken by the Ornn. Triple knockup there at the same time as Teddy finds the backline with the Petrifying Gaze, but it's a gigantic Emperor's Divide, and Hanwha Life looks to have routed this team fight. They're not going to be able to pick up the Dragon Soul, but damn, they'll get the ace, and this is going to be massive damage to the T1 base, or just a Baron freely taken by Hanwha.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little afraid for Hana, just given that they had put up that turret from Azir in that mid lane, and as they're funneling in, obviously you saw the double ultimates coming in from Ornn. Both hit slightly well, obviously a little bit better from Cuvée just straight down the line, but we look at this, Faker jumps in, isn't able to really help him much. Kana does secure the Drake. Teddy's now full health, looking for that Petrifying Gaze, gets it, but look at Zenit. Zenit was supposed to die in that fight, and just continues to survive, flashes out, has the protection, and the extra black shield allows for another kill participation before he finally goes down, and 4 members of Hanwha stay alive.
Yeah, and Hanwha do move it into this Baron as well, so they've got that for another 3 minutes, and T1 are reeling right now. Their inner turret fell down also, but they should be able to stabilize here, and we'll see whether the ornaments are going to be what turns the tide here, as Canna can deliver one to Faker and to LM. LM grabs the first one, Obsidian Cleaver now done. And we're looking to see when Canna ticks up to level 15 before he can give that Wraith Blade over to Faker for the extra stats. And they're going to need all of the stats that they can find here this game, because Zenit is just gigantic, and he's getting bigger and bigger as this game goes on. Infinity Edge will be the next item. And there's a... Oh my god. Lehen's also giving him the Ardent Sensor buff also, so it's going to be so hard to kill this guy.
And we have to mention that Cuvée has really only been focusing on making sure that they have that Ornn ultimate for extra CC. Nothing else has really concerned him in terms of getting extra utility around the map with the Pantheon man drop, or if it's being able to survive a little bit longer and add a little bit more tenacity, of course, for Zenit. through that Kindred ultimate, just keeping him alive. Nothing of that nature. They just want more CC in the beginning, as we see Teddy.
Yep, Emperor's Divide. The snake is going to get popped, temped down relatively low, but T1 just slow on the rotation, unable to get over here. They clear out the minions, but that is a dead Teddy, and not a lot of options when it comes to wave clear as this next minion wave is going to pull up.
This is, it's not looking good. I mean, I don't think T1 can do too much. Maybe they can just buy a little bit of time. They're not even going to risk that, just given the power that Hanwha has right now. Of course, Zenit able to really melt through most people. Maybe not Kana as quickly, but clearly didn't have much of a problem in that last fight either. And of course, we see Cuvee continuing to just be a menace on his own. And we saw in that earlier fight as well, saving his teleport for when it's really needed. He's been very good about his map movement and awareness, allowing the rest of Hanwha to kind of be wherever they want.
Yeah, just a gigantic pick as well there in the mid lane, securing 2 inhibitors here for Hanwha Life. And 8,000 gold is the lead. We talk about Ornn providing so much gold in stats, but Hanwha, despite that, are still super far ahead as Tempt hyper aggressive underneath this turret, and that is going to reap all of the rewards here for Hanwha.
Oh, and Zenit just using his ult to secure the CC rather than the damage, still able to burst down Teddy in 2 shots. Aphelios obviously still in a very strong state in 10.5, and we're really seeing Zenit make good use of that. And I think it comes down to what you mentioned earlier, Atlas. They were able to survive that laning phase, probably thanks to the combination they had with Morgana. They might not be able to get the kills because of Nautilus, but also just keeping Teddy at bay so that T1's not able to run rampant, as we see them pushing for yet another Dragon's top lane.
Yep, the inner is going to fall down. They're just happy to tank things up as well. They've got plenty of damage. Don't worry about no backdoor bonuses or anything like that. And Hanwha Life now looking to take down the last remaining inhibitor. T1, do they have a miracle team fight up their sleeve is going to be the question. I just don't know whether it's going to be available. As they do clear out the minions, and there's no Baron left available.
There we go. I mean, Hanwha playing it safe, right, given that the Baron is no longer there, and the next Drake is up as well. Hanwha knows that T1 is also very concerned about these Drakes, right? While the Mountain Soul was definitely much more useful for T1, at least to see the full soul coming out. But Hanwha can make very good use of it right now as well, and then also calling upon that Elder Dragon. That's not something that T1 wants to see. So Hanwha knows that T1's going to have to chase them. Now, Cuvee has Nautilus's ult, as they were looking to make sure that they had a secure way out. But it may actually work out in their favor if T1 has to funnel through that entrance.
Well, you can see T1 actually trying to get a flank here as Kana at full health. And we're waiting for a man drop. In goes the Horn as Zenit. The Black Shield is now down. Emperor's Divide used very defensively, but Haru is gigantic. The Stone Plate as well as the Subjugation, and Teddy now has to have the ultimate utilized by Ellen, but Cuvee dives in on top of him and will secure that kill. It is answered back as now Ellen trying to dance over, looks for Lehens, but he's unable to do so. And Facus and Effort survive with Kana there as well, but the base is not going to be so lucky, as even the Sun Turret is being annoying on their way out, as Faker looking for an opportunity, but he's just going to fall Fat Flash over the wall, does what Deft wasn't able to do yesterday, but is still able to escape for the moment. But Zenit is going to stop him. He uses him as a taxi, but Faker will still fall down. And now Effort underneath this turret. There are too many super creeps in Hanwha Life. They've done it again. They've pushed T1 to 3 games, and now we'll have momentum moving into the third.
That last fight was just so beautiful from Hanwha, and it's crazy to think about because they actually, if they had lost that fight, the narrative would be they let Zenit alone, they left him alone and let him die, but Zenit was able to stay alive, and we see the Silas coming in from Cuvee, and then Lehens getting a beautiful Morgana ult on top of Kindred's so that they can't move out. They don't really have a choice, right? Either they move out and die, or they're going to get locked in with the stun. And the rest of it just writes itself as they continue to clean up every single kill as Kindred's ult comes back off of the ground. And Hanwha Life tie it up.
Yeah, really, really clean stuff. And I think this is an example of a game without Cuvee and then a game with Cuvee, right? Like, the first one, Cuvee wasn't really allowed to play League of Legends, and this second one, he was dictating so many of these team fights with all of his different hijacks. Just really great Silas play out of a player that we think of more as this utility style of player. And yes, Silas does have a lot of that, but he was also diving into the backline and managing to secure these kills on the key carries of T1. And T1 got the comp that they were looking for, right? But Hanwha had the answer.
Yeah, I mean, Hanwha answered that very well. And I'll be honest, going into the middle portion of the game, I thought maybe it was because of the double buff. We'll see it here shortly, I'm sure, of course. Initially, Haru dives this tower for the first blood, giving up his buffs, and we were questioning that move a little bit. And then Elm's, we're actually going to skip it. Elm eventually gives that double buff over to Cuvée later. But this is going to be, I mean, it's really the Cuvée show for most team fights. Everyone played it well. But Cuvée really just being a menace. Faker is able to escape that duel with the flash later on to help pick up the kill. And, I mean, Kana being up front did not matter. Faker, of course, great survival here, but the Black Shield keeps Zenit alive for a lot of that damage and maneuverability as well.
Yeah, and Zenit surviving just seems to be the story of this game because he was just able to contribute in all of these team fights, and the peel from Hanwha was just so strong. I think, the way that Cuvée played this frontline sort of assassin dive Silas, it's really, really cool to see his play style coming through in a champion that doesn't really feel like that style, as also Temp just had some killer Emperor's Divides this game. Just not enough for T1 to be able to mitigate all of these different threats on the team.
Yeah, it seems like everyone just played out of their minds. Cuvée actually getting that amazing ult there as well, so that Zenit can continue dishing out that damage. I mean, Cuvée, just his, like you said, his decision-making as a frontline Silas, but then also dishing out all that damage at the same time. Obviously, he's showing
T1 that Silas is like Ornn, Ornn feels like this tank, but then he does way too much damage, and then also sometimes he feels like a backline assassin. That's exactly what Cuvée was using Silas for in this game.
Yeah, and I think an important part that he played in the first couple team fights, including this one, was that he was able to really lock up Faker's Pantheon as soon as Pantheon showed up. That allowed the Black Shield to be utilized a little bit in a broader form for Zenit. It freed Zenit up for other damage, and later on, Cuvée actually just got so strong on his own that he's able to dive in. We see him wrapping around the corner and then just dives forward first, dishes out a lot of the damage, survives with that stopwatch or the Zhonya's, and then we see the Hens going in with that ultimate as well. Cuvée just chases the back line to try to secure one more kill.
Yeah, manages to pick up the Cassiopeia, which is a large amount of what T1 were relying on in order to do damage. And look at this. Like, that's what happens when Aphelios is able to run rampant, right? He's going to be able to get all of this damage in these team fights.
Yeah, I mean, Zenit positioned himself very well, and then on top of that, with the help of the rest of his teammates, really dominated every fight in terms of damage. But I mean, as we were watching those replays as well, Atlas, I mean, we kept mentioning pretty much every single person. It's really Hanwha in full form during that game too.
Exactly. It was a team effort. Fantastic work from Hanwha. Now have momentum moving into this game number 3. We are going to go to a short break, guys, but when we get back, we're going to be on the edge of our seats because T1 might be facing yet another loss to Hanwha Live. We'll see what happens after the break.